One of the most annoying things you can have with an older motorcycle is what I call buzzing, or vibration through the grips, the foot pegs, and I've come up with some things that have made my bikes a lot better than they were if I didn't do it. And I'm going to try to pass some of those little tips on in this video. They're not an absolute cure-all. A lot of them will make it a lot better. Some of the tips have worked so well for me, they've totally gotten rid of the vibration I was dealing with. So recently on the channel, I had a fella comment on the video. He asked me about, he was looking at a GS video and he said he has a similar bike, exactly the same bike, and he has an annoying buzz in the handlebars. And I know exactly what he was talking about, and I tried to answer him in the comments section, but then I realized this is probably a generic enough subject that it would be worth making a very short video, because I have had information that might be worth sharing. This is technical information. You can use it to your advantage, share it. If it works for you, that's great. There's no guarantee. I'm only passing on things that have worked for me and things that have been good in my bike collection of 9 bikes that have helped me debug little problems, and one of them was buzzing in the handlebars on the GS. And I'm going to go through this in detail. I hope it's not too long and drawn out, but there is a lot of things it can be, and I'm going to list the things that worked for me. So the first part of the diagnosis is easy. If it happens at certain speeds and not at other speeds, more than likely it's in the front tire, the balance of the front tire. If it happens at different RPMs, it's more than likely a resonant vibration given off by the engine itself. Now, the first thing I always suggest to people, if they have a buzzing and a handlebar issue on an older bike, and what worked for me. Now, this is one of my GS's, and this is the one that I am the original owner of. This is really now a parts bike, but I have driven it some. And here's the thing, that when I put on the Renthal bars, the gold bars, I immediately had what I call buzzing in the handlebars. Now, the reason you don't have it when you have the stock bars, if you look in the end of the stock bars, I'll try to get this close, there's weights in it. This much of the bar is a weight. So in essence, if anybody understands resonant vibration, as that's starting to vibrate, this mutes it down, and that's a big thing. So if you have a bike with non-stock handlebars that's giving you a problem, the first thing I would say, if you haven't sold or given away the original bars, put the original bars that have the weights in the end on, and 9 times out of 10, if it's not going to cure it, it's going to make it a lot better. So if it's happening only at certain speeds, highway speeds, you can pretty much pin it down to the front tire, and that's a relatively easy thing to replace and change out. Now, the second thing is, and it's always something obvious, it's never something super high-tech with these older bikes. What I found over the years, now I have just under 80,000 miles on this bike, and I've had many different tires. Now, in the course of owning it, I had a front tire on the bike that was absolutely fine unless you were going 45 miles an hour. And right at 45, it would start to shake. And at 47, it would go away. And at 43, it would come back. There was a range, and it made me crazy. I rebalanced it. I broke the bead, cleaned it up, reset the bead, rebalanced it, did everything I could. And I finally got so annoyed with it. And it was Luciano that came up with the idea. He said, just throw the tire away. It's a bad tire. And I threw the tire away and put on, this was a brand new Michelin Commander. I did not have a Michelin Commander on. I don't remember what brand I had. The brand new Michelin Commander made the bike not only stop vibrating, it was 100% better handling wise. I don't know why. I don't need to know. It was one of the things that helped me make the most out of this bike and get it to run as smooth and neat and clean, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful smooth motorcycle now. And I don't know the exact thing that goes wrong with both car tires and with motorcycle tires, but I know you can get a bad tire, and I have had them, and I know replacing the tire, it cured the problem. But I don't know exactly if the belts loosen up or what happens to them, or if they're just bad tires. Now, another thing that can contribute to what I call it buzzing or vibration, Joe Padula has exactly the same bike. When he first got it, he rode my bike. Now, my bike has overdrive gearing on it. It has a 16 front, 40 rear. I got those from Vlad, and thank you. And a 530 chain conversion. So what that means is my bike has what amounts to be overdrive gearing. Now, the bikes came from the factory with totally different gearing and a 630 chain, and that what would happen is that setup would be great for the drag strip, but if you're out on Route 80 for 30 miles at 80 miles an hour, 75, what happens is you get that annoying vibration, and Joe put the exact word he used was buzzing. The buzzing would make you crazy. Now, this bike doesn't buzz anywhere near like a stock bike. Part of it is the overdrive gearing. The other part is I use the stock bars that have weights in the end, and they're heavy. If you pick up a set of stock bars, well, stock GS bars are hard to find on eBay and hard to find anywhere, but they cure that problem for this motorcycle. So what the overdrive gearing really does when you change it out, the vibration is still there, but you've moved it into a different range. And let's just use an example. Instead of having a resonant vibration at 80, maybe now it moved up to 95, or it moved down to 35, or somewhere where it's not totally annoying. But what's a killer is when a bike, it vibrates right at the speed you want to be riding on a highway. And the GS was a victim of that. Now, the overdrive gearing, it made another big giant leap forward to making the bike vibration free. Now, another thing, and again, it was Luciano that helped me diagnose this, and it wasn't recently, but I had done some work on the bike, and I had the front end off the ground. I think I had it on a come along, and Luciano happened to be here, and he grabbed the front end, and he said, he moved it back and forth, back and forth. He said, you got a little bit of play in the front end. And so it requires going to the head bearing, and it's really easy if you already have the front tire off the bike and it's up in the air, is to take the nut off and adjust just enough play in there so as you turn it, there's no spots where it catches. It doesn't do this notchy thing. It goes back and forth, back and forth. And what's a great idea, if you do have the top triple clamp off, just re-grease the bearing while it's apart. And that's cheap maintenance, but that contributes, and he had done that on an RD. He replaced the head bearing with taper bearings. That's a typical RD trick, and that seems to really help. But so now the combination that I'm trying to get at is we have a Michelin Commander that's been really accurately balanced, and I really take my time balancing. I don't do this like, take it to the dealer and put it on the machine balancing, and then they just randomly put whatever weight they have in their pocket on it. I did an accurate balancing on that. I adjusted the head bearing as exactly what Luciano said. That play in the front end is exactly what it should be, and it's as smooth as glass, and it's re-greased. And the big thing is the over gearing the bike, I guess is the right word. Now, I know a lot of people don't want to do that. I'll lose acceleration, and maybe you do lose an amount, but I'm not racing anybody anyway. And these engines are so powerful, they'll turn any gearing. You could be in 2 gears too high. But getting rid of that little, what I call the annoying buzzing, the buzz in the bars would be a good way. That's something that I have experienced. Those are the things that worked for me. And having bars like the Renthals that have no weights in the end, and the worst thing you can do is put drag bars on. Or the shorter you make the bars, the higher the resonance goes. So what I'm saying by that is the resonant range, instead of being 45, it might be 55. The shorter you make the bars and the lighter you make them, the higher up the scale that's going to go. In theory, because I'm comparing it to a model airplane propeller, something I do know a little bit about, but just to refresh with this bike, because I know the question was for a GS. The Michelin Commander tires make a world of difference in the way the bike handles. The stock bars, you may want lower bars because they look cool or something, but I don't know. I think one of the things you might have to do if you wanted shorter or lower bars is get weights, get aftermarket weights, or fill the end of the bars with lead sinkers or something. I don't know what, but it's as opposed to a bike that's so beautiful and then has a buzz in it. I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. It's a compromise, and that's the little issues that worked for me. Now, one nuclear option is like old Kawasaki two-strokes had these big, thick, spongy, soft grips, and I think some British bikes had something similar, but Luciano had them on his H1, and I remember it brought back a memory, and they did make it a little bit smoother. Now, if you look at any modern bike, this is a modern Kawasaki, they always have these counterweights on the end of the bars. Well, the engineers, I'm sure, have figured out they're not there because they just want to make the bike heavier. That's a critical part of making a bike smooth. And the points of contact, the seat, if your seat is too hard, the pegs don't have rubber mounts on them, they're solid aluminum, or the driver's points of contact, if they're unnecessarily stiff, you get buzzing. Now, this bike is super smooth, and it's a twin too. And I never tried taking these off just to see if it would make a problem, but there's no reason to, because that worked great, and that's right from the factory. And I always think the factory knows a lot more than I do. It's always worth giving a factory stuff a shot. Now, years ago when I made the carbon fiber mufflers for the GS, I made the bracket in the back so stiff that it had a buzz through the whole bike. It had a resonant vibration. And I wound up having to over drill and put rubber bushings in to get rid of the vibration. But a lot of times you can take apart, especially on an RD, if you put expansion chambers. A lot of times you don't put enough give in the rubber bushing, or you make it too tight, or you make it solid when it should be rubber mounted. And an exhaust system is something that can just amplify, because of the length of the exhaust, it amplifies the vibration. So here's a point. These are rental bars on my RD. This bike does have some vibration through the handlebars, but everything on the bike is so rubber mounted. These pegs, the rubber on the pegs is an inch thick. They are rubber mounted into the frame. The bars are rubber mounted into the forks, and yet there's still some vibration out here. Some, not horrible, but still some. So I often wonder, even on an RD, if I were to machine up a piece of steel like this, or fill the ends of the bars with lead sinkers, I don't know what would be exactly the right weight or what, but it would be worth experimenting with, because that can ruin the whole fun of riding a bike when you have an annoying vibration. Now, I spent most of my life flying model planes where there was always an issue with vibration. You were always balancing propellers and balancing and tightening bolts and trying to get all the vibration out of the airframe possible. And the same technology applies to a motorcycle, any motorcycle. It's a lot of little things, and I've tried to cover or hit the high spots on this video. And if you do them all, I'm sure the bike will run smoother than if you don't do any of them. Now, virtually all the bikes that I've ever seen that have clip-ons have similar weights. This is the MT-09, comes standard with weights on the end of the bars. I'm sure over the years that's been one of the key things to getting a bike to be overall be smooth. And I'm not sure on a newer bike you wouldn't expect the head bearing to be loose or a rim to be, or a wheel to be way out of balance. But anything you do to make the bike smoother, it all adds up in the end. And what I've done over all the years I've owned the bike, and I have owned this bike 42 years now, I have done a lot of experimenting, and after all these years, it is really like a Cadillac. That's all I can say. So I hope all these little tips are useful, and if they are, great. I hope some or all of them work on getting your GS as smooth as mine. And thanks so much for watching. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit the like button if you did, and thank you so much for watching.